Well, I guess the big question is, what do you think of all of this? And what do you think of the overall reaction last week and a half since you've been appointed interim executive director?
Well, obviously I believe in freedom of speech, and this is what America's all about. Obviously, we're welcoming the public here and want to hear what they have to say. We've provided, if you want to take a picture, and we have donuts and water set up for everyone. And we've also set up a sign-in sheet and a recording device inside for each and every person to record any public comments they'd like to voice, and we'll make sure that those tapes are available for the Board of Commissioners.
I guess the big question is, I've heard from people, you've heard from people. What do you say to people that your appointment was simply friends taking care of friends?
I have to actually disagree. You know, the most important thing to realize is that the appointment of Cameron was done pretty much what one would consider a lame duck. An outgoing board put in place a contract for a director. It was, in my opinion, in my observation, forcing a new board to accept without getting their input, asking what they think. If you look at city councils, villages, and other park districts, typically when a new board comes in is when they make the decision who their administrator or executive director is going to be. And for a board to do that in lame duck, I feel is irresponsible.
So are you saying as of right now, Cameron Benton will not be taking over as executive director then on July 1st?
That would be up to the board to decide. I would think in the near future you would see another meeting scheduled where they would make that decision whether I stay or B, I go. Cameron comes in and takes over, or B, I go and a different person gets brought in. Those would be the three options on the table.
Why was the meeting that was supposed to happen today canceled?
You know what? I've received memos from Mary Ludeman and Larry Newton that they will only speak or converse with me at a public meeting, and I've sent them an email with the schedule for the meeting, and didn't get a response on if they could make it or not. I want to make sure that all the commissioners are going to be available to the meeting, so the full forum. And we have 2 different items you want to add to the agenda.
What do you say to that?
No!
Experience?
Peck, no!
Pause for just a moment.
Peck, no! Resume, please! Resume!
Yes! Peck, no! Yes!
Peck, no!
Yes!
Peck, no! Resume!
No! Yes!
Peck, no!
Yes!
Peck, no!
Yes! Peck, no!
Yes! Peck, no!
Yes! Peck, no! Peck, yes!
Peck, no! Peck, no!
Okay, sorry, we'll pick it up.
All right. What do you say to people that you lack the experience necessary to have this job? We talked to Treasurer Doug
Yes,
Bruce.
you sure
He
did.
came on our show and he said, being an executive director, you don't need to know how to identify leads. You don't need to know how to kill them. All you have to do is manage the staff. Is that a statement you agree with?
There's a little more to it than just managing staff. Obviously, having a relationship with other elected officials and different layers of government that we would execute intergovernmental agreements with is important. I think watching and monitoring legislation in Springfield, having a good relationship and contacts in Springfield is a good thing, whether that be Representative Tom Cross or Jennifer Gino-Tarrant, our local rep and senators as well. You know what? If you look at the Naperville Park District, that's exponentially larger. They have golf courses, they have their own police department. Their executive director doesn't have a background in parks, and I think that's actually a very successful park district. He's a retired police chief, if I'm not mistaken. And I think he does a darn good job of managing the Naperville Park District, and he's a great manager. So essentially, managing our department heads is key, and having the ability to work with staff and make sure they have their tools they need to be successful, putting their budgets together, then essentially delineating the board's policies that they put together and make sure that the department heads are aware of that so they have the tools they need to be successful and go within the budget. And once we're done with this interview, I'll be happy to show you a printout of our tax levy from the last 5 years, and you'll see the amount of taxes that the past board levied was increasing every single year. And I'll show it to you. It's in paper. They can't deny it. They're hiding from it. And guess what? You can't hide from the numbers. The facts are the facts. They were raising taxes.
But with that being said, with some of the other numbers we've looked at, you look at around the Will County area and around the state, people in Plainfield still aren't paying as much as they are in some other park districts. And there are people saying, Mary Kay Ludeman on the board has said that sure, taxes were slightly increasing, but that the overall cost to the Plainfield taxpayer was nominal.
Sure. Some may argue, and to me that's a weak argument, saying that, well, we don't pay as much as the next guy does, that's weak. People move to Plainfield because, one, they enjoy the services, they enjoy the small town, they enjoy the community, and I realize the Park District encompasses more than just Plainfield. There's other areas, unincorporated, there's some Joliet in here. And you know what? Saying that they raise taxes and it's okay because other people's taxes are higher is unacceptable, in my opinion. With my experience as a elected official in other capacity and as a resident here in Plainfield. And that new board's policy right now is what it looks like is going to be not to raise the levy. So I find that argument shallow.
So what does that do for the Park District then, as far as if the levy's not going to go up? Obviously you're not going to have as much money coming in. Are you guys still going to be able to provide the level of services you are right now to the people?
Absolutely. Our goal is to provide the best service possible, get the residents the best bang for their buck, and actually look at our programs that generate revenue versus levying taxes for revenue. Right now we're actually looking at the equestrian center and a different way to better market that and bring revenue in through the equestrian center and that service.
So I guess one of my big points is, and something I've heard from a lot of people is, what can you do in the next 6 weeks as an interim executive director to have any long-term effect on the Park District and how it's run?
You know what, we're going to look at the performance and different tactics that the past board administration made, and that's what's been going on for the last week or so. And one of the things that I will do if I am offered a contract and hired is I will call for an immediate forensic audit of our books, our policies, our procedures. We're going to look at the agendas. We're going to look and see if there are any Open Meeting Act violations. There's a lot of red flags I'm looking at internally, and I actually want to have another set of eyes go over before we make any public statements as far as what really has been going on here in the last 8 to 10 years.
So when your 6 weeks are up and July 1st comes and the board has to make a decision, do you want to be named the executive director of the Plainfield Park District?
That's going to depend on the bargaining between the Park District president and the board and myself. If they ask for me to continue to volunteer here and do this for no money, I'd have to say, you know what, I'd be happy to volunteer for a few more weeks or a month, but long term I'm not going to spend 40-50 hours a week in this position for no compensation. I think that's a pretty fair argument to make.
When you were initially appointed, like I talked about, we talked to Treasurer Doug Booth. He talked about the experience necessary for the job. He also talked about the fact that when we said, why was Garrett Peck appointed, the first thing he said was, he's friends with Peter Hurtado. Do you think that sends a bad message to the people of Plainfield as far as that's the number one reason he pointed out why you were appointed?
Well, I guess you have to dissect the word friends. Do I go to Peter Hurtado's, I don't even know when his birthday is. Do we send each other Christmas cards? No. You know what, he's an associate.